Well. Good morning, everybody. It's happy. It's a happy Valentine's Day, February 14th, 8:22 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Just a few minutes late because I had to go. I went to go get these little ears. Happy Valentine's Day ears. And I also slept in for just a few minutes, and then it was killing it at the gym. And then I was having a happy Valentine's Day with my girlfriend. So I'm just a little bit late, but we still made it. Ready to rock. Oh, yeah, she had these ears out for a party last week. And so I took them for this podcast, and you can't even see them because they kind of stick out to the top of the picture. But if I lean back, you could see them bouncing around. These little heart ears. So, happy Valentine's Day. Who knows what the history of Valentine's Day is, because I have no idea. Wasn't there a guy named Saint Valentine, and now it's named after him or something like that? Because I bet that's what it is. I'm gonna Google history. Google. I'm gonna Google Happy Valentine's Day. This IndianExpress.com says the true origin story is still very vague. According to the legend, the day is celebrated to mark the death anniversary of Saint Valentine, who died in mid-February 270 AD. It is said that Saint Valentine was a priest who defied emperor's orders and secretly married couples to spare husbands from war. Homie was hooking it up. Saint Valentine was a homie. He was a matchmaker. And he was a heartbreaker. It's been observed for 1,500 years. In honor of one or two early Christian martyrs named Saint Valentine, and the later folk tradition has become a significant cultural, religious, and commercial celebration of romance and love in many regions of the world. Well, Saint Valentine, you may have saved lives from war in 200 AD, but now you've become a icon of love, and now people have to buy flowers because of you, one day a year at least. You buy flowers Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, and then birthdays maybe. So maybe 3 times out of the year. Yeah, but for your significant other, yeah. Yeah, 3 flowers. And guess what? Guys don't get flowers, but I would love flowers. So if you're listening to this, my sweet, lovely girlfriend, and I know you never listen to my podcast, I would love some flowers. All right. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. Yeah. Thanks. Welcome to the podcast. I didn't even welcome you in. Welcome to another episode of Cadence Podcast. Subsection Book Club, where we read books. I read a book and then I talk about it. So you, if you get too busy listening and doing all your other stuff, you can't read a book, but you still want some inspiration and learn how to self-improvement advice and self-help and financial advice and leadership advice and practical advice. And what else do I do? I do yoga, history advice. I do stoic advice, philosophy, discussing human behavior, why we do what we do. We read books from people who are smarter than us and then talk about their concepts. I also write about it in my blog. I need to put a link in here still. Caden Kelly's blog.wordpress.com, or I'm on Substack now under cadenkelly.substack.com. So that's where you can read and listen and watch how to be a better person, how to just be a happier person. And I'll tell you this as well. I do it live Mondays, every Monday. Do the podcast live on YouTube under Caden Kelly or Caden's Podcast, Facebook under Caden's Podcast, and then Twitch for my gaming homies under Alpha Seltzer, ALFASELTZER. Easy to find me, easy to watch. You get to contribute to the chat, have a good time with with my moderator, who I'm pretty sure is here, but he's been silent so far. But if he's not, then that's okay, because you know what? 8 a.m.'s early, and he just had a baby, so I'm not gonna judge him at all if he is not able to make it live today, because he's here every week, anyways. So no worries. So it's last week was a good week. Super Bowl was yesterday. I don't give a fuck about football, but it's fun hanging out with everybody who do care and watching them react to crazy football stuff. Sorry, I'm fidgeting with my pens. I'm fidgeting because when I do podcast, I can't not fidget. So, had a good time. We played pickleball. It's starting to get warm enough, at least a little, to play some outdoor pickleball. And ate a lot of food, drank a lot of beer, and felt like shit going to bed and waking up, but it's not going to stop us. Sometimes it does, but it didn't stop me today. And yeah, the rest of the week was devoted to more pickleball and video games, and I've been working on a little side project that I'll be releasing here in just a little while. So some fun, exciting stuff to look forward to. If you can't get enough of Caden Kelly's content, the KKC, then you're in luck, because there's going to be some hot new takes coming out. So stay tuned. I'll probably release all of it this week, and then come out next week with what it is. So anyway, look around. I love the holiday accessory. We live. Yep. Happy Valentine's Day, Saint Steve's TV / I don't want to say your Rainbow Six name / Breach's Thigh Gap, or maybe it's Brimstone's Thigh Gap. The man of many names. He wears many hats. But today I've got 2 hats, wearing 2 at one time. All right. Anyway, good morning. Hope you've got your coffee, because we've got a big book today to discuss. That was really good. According to the title of this podcast, the book that we did is called Dare to Lead. Brave Work, Tough Conversations, Whole Hearts by Brené Brown. Daring greatly and rising strong at work. This was supposed to be my workbook for the cycle. Let's see. Here's Brené's credentials. Brené Brown, PhD, LMSW, don't know what that is a research professor at the University of Houston and has spent 20 years studying courage, vulnerability, shame, and empathy. She is also the author of 4 #1 New York Times bestsellers, Braving the Wilderness, Rising Strong, Daring Greatly, and The Gifts of Imperfection. Her acclaimed TED Talk on vulnerability is one of the 5 most watched, with over 35 million views. That's how I heard about her, because I think I have original ideas out of one of my meditations. I had this idea about vulnerability, and vulnerability is the only way to grow. It's the only way to learn, because you put yourself in an unknown territory where you could be stricken down, but or you'll grow. And almost always, when you put yourself out there in a healthy, good environment, you're going to grow. But it's scary, and you feel vulnerable. So I was talking to my mom about this revolutionary idea I had, and she said, "Oh, you would love Brené Brown then, because she's been studying vulnerability for 20 years." And so I thought, okay, I don't have any original thoughts. None of my thoughts are original. Any thought I do have has been discussed for the last 20 years, and there are several books written about them. And I'm embracing that, because I'm 26, and I'm young, and I've got a lot to learn, and there's probably some undiscovered research out there, or unstudied research, but I haven't figured it out yet, so who cares? The book was awesome, and her TED Talk is amazing. Licensed Master Social Worker, LMSW. Do you just know that? Or did you Google that for me? Because that's really helpful. Licensed Master Social Worker. So she's not just a researcher. PhD, and a social worker and a researcher. Nice. So that's Brene Brown. Yeah, I'd encourage you, if you don't want to read any of her books, encourage you to go listen to her TED Talk, which is, what was it called? Um, I'll find it for you because it's worth sharing. I'll type Brene Brown TED Talk. The Power of Vulnerability TED Talk from 2010. Yeah, she's been going at it for a while. I think she's like 60 now. She has a podcast too. So after reading this book, I followed her on Twitter, and I found out that she is anti Joe Rogan, which breaks my heart because I love both of them. I really respect Brene's work and how she handles her business. Just how, the whole book, and we'll talk about it in a second. The whole book is her how to handle conflict and in the workplace primarily. That's what the book was about, but just how to handle conflict and how to be vulnerable, how to be brave, how to be courageous. And in the book, there's a section where she references. Actually, maybe I'll read it to you because I sent it to my mom. I just thought maybe. So I guess the point is Brene is anti-Rogan because she's less anti-Rogan, more anti not being clear about COVID misinformation policies from Spotify. In her Twitter, she shared she doesn't necessarily dislike Joe Rogan. She's a exclusive Spotify podcaster as well, just like Rogan. So she says, I'm in this unique spot. I can't just pull my stuff off of Spotify if I don't like their policies or if I don't respect what they're doing. So she said, she said she's not making podcast until Spotify comes out with policies regarding COVID misinformation. And then she wrote about this in her blog, and then she said, yeah, with Rogan needs to be held accountable for what he says with his massive audience. And she's not wrong. She's not wrong. The reason that I keep bringing Rogan up, well, besides the fact that he's my Lord and Savior, is I just appreciate how I read something else earlier last week about how people like Rogan because his whole format it's unscripted, and it's just like him talking to his guests is just like you talking to him or you talking to your friends without cameras or microphones, and it's all it's casual and it feels real, and they share ideas and they talk about things that aren't true because not to intentionally spread information, but just to talk about their ideas and their feelings. And how many times have I talked about shit on here to you, to nobody, to this camera, about shit that I've gotten wrong, that isn't true, but it's just me talking about my thoughts. And you do it with your people you respect, with people that you share ideas with. And the shitty thing for Rogan is he's said some really horrible things, and everything he says is recorded, and everything he said has been recorded for the last 20 years or 15 years or however long it's been. A lot of words have been recorded. So he and then some people are upset because he has the biggest platform, or he has the most viewership, but whatever. Maybe I'll save this quote from Brene until later. Let's just talk about the book, huh? Let's just jump right into it. Good morning. Oh, that's so goddamn good. All right. So, Dare to Lead, Brene Brown. All right, this book is broken up into 4 parts, And the meat of the book is in part 1 and part 2. Part 3 and part 4 are pretty much just a chapter each. But part 1 is called Rumbling with Vulnerability. Part 2, Living into Our Values. Part 3, Braving Trust. Part 4, Learning to Rise. So vulnerability, values, trust, and learning are the 4 parts of the book. Vulnerability, values, trust, learning. And yeah, again, part 1 and part 2 is pretty much everything. It's pretty much the whole meat. So let's get into it. In the introduction, I love the introduction because if a book like this, and not a book like fucking what was the one I did last week by Nietzsche? What's it called? Beyond Good and Evil, where that's just like a diary. Modern day authors are breaking books down into sections like part 1, part 2, and then they explain their intentions in the introduction so that, well, just so it's clear from the beginning, which I love. It makes reading the book easier and it makes talking about it easier. It's just more fluid. So her intentions for writing this book is to provide an actionable, no bullshit book on what it takes to be a daring leader. We'll talk about daring. A daring leader. With her 2 decades of studying leadership and now as a CEO leader herself, she argues we desperately need more leaders dedicated to courageous and wholehearted leadership, self-aware enough not to lead from hurt and fear. That she listed 10 things that prevent 10 things. Okay, she conducted a study of multiple leaders and came up with a list of 10 things that these leaders say prevent courageousness. We avoid tough conversations, including honest feedback, spend too much time in managing problematic behaviors. That's not good. Diminishing trust through lack of trust and empathy. Not enough people are taking smart risks or exchanging bold ideas. The best you can expect then is the status quo. Spending too much time reassuring team members who question their value. Too much shame and blame. Not enough accountability and learning. Opting out of conversations about diversity and inclusivity because they fear looking wrong or saying something wrong. Rushing into ineffective solutions. Organizational values are assessed by aspirations rather than behaviors that can be measured. And perfectionism and fear. Feeling fear is not the barrier to brave leadership. It's how we respond to it. All right, that's the introduction. Part 1, rumbling and tumbling. I made up the tumbling part. With vulnerability. Rumbling with vulnerability. Section 1, the moment and the myths. Again, vulnerability. I've had a short chain of my own thoughts about vulnerability, and she goes ham on what vulnerability is and why it's useful personally, in your relationships, in your workplace. I love it. I love how vulnerability is showing up when you don't have control of the outcome. She shares a quote by Marcus Aurelius. If you remember him, he's the Roman emperor from the 1st century AD, 2nd century AD, or BC. I don't remember. He's the quote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." I share a quote I share that quote in my recent blog too. I forgot the quote. Something about the things that inhibit action are the things to be acted upon. Often what stands in the way becomes the way. Myths around vulnerability. Myth number 1, vulnerability is weakness. Number 2, I don't do vulnerability. Well, these things are... I shook my head a little, and then I forgot that I had these on, and it made my head shake a little, and that kind of made my heart drop. Number 2, I don't do vulnerability. I let fear do my thinking. Number 3, I can go it alone. Number 4, you can engineer the uncertainty of emotion, of vulnerability. Number 5, trust comes before vulnerability. Trust is hard to gain, takes time, easy to lose, often in a moment. John Gottman discovered the 4 strongest components of divorce: criticism, defensiveness, stonewalling, and contempt. That first point, though, is really essential. Trust. I remember my buddy said this in fucking junior high. Alex Price, if you're listening to this, this is you from junior high, about one of our other friends who, I can't remember what the drama was, but something happened between you and this friend. And we were talking about it, and you said to me, you said this to me in fucking like 9th grade. Trust is hard to gain and takes a long time to earn, but it can be lost in a moment. It's easy to lose. And I thought, man, this motherfucker is so wise. And we're both just going to algebra, you know? We're both studying chemistry together, but he's spitting mad game, mad philosophy. Trust is hard to gain and takes time, but it's easy to lose in a moment. I think that's powerful. And then myth number 6, vulnerability is disclosure. So vulnerability is showing up when you don't have control of the outcome. Section 2, the call to courage. Direct quote. Leaders must either invest a reasonable amount of time attending to fears and feelings or squander an unreasonable amount of time trying to manage ineffective and unproductive behavior. I liked that quote. I took it down. What does that have to do with courage? If you remember the book, Ryan Holiday's book about courage, he had just excerpt after excerpt about courage. I should go back and read it now after having these thoughts about vulnerability, because having courage is very vulnerable. It requires a lot of vulnerability. Typically, someone who's courageous is acting. Well, let me read this last part. Other people's emotions is not our job. It takes courage to allow people to be emotional, but to not take responsibility for their emotions. And I think I do that all the time. I think I take responsibility for people's emotions when I do something that might hurt some. Like if I make a selfish decision for my, to be okay. Like, let me think of an example. If I can think of an example. Usually I like to take responsibility for other people's feelings just to smooth things over and make life better. Because if someone's upset with me for something I've done and I didn't do anything wrong, I will usually just take the fall. But it does take, I guess I am thinking of a personal experience where I where I did end up taking the fall to try to smooth things over. It didn't even work in the end. And it would have taken an immense amount of courage to stand my ground and defend my decision, my own intentions. But instead, I tried to smooth things over in this relationship by taking the fall and I guess giving validity to someone's feelings which weren't right subjectively, objectively, but everyone subjectively feels what they feel. You can't tell someone their feelings are wrong, but I guess the point is it would take a lot of courage to just defend yourself, but then you got to have humility too to acknowledge when you've made mistakes, I guess. Maybe that's why vulnerability works in this context, because if you do something that hurts someone else's feelings, but you're doing it because you think it's the right thing to do, and you go sit down and talk with that person or those people that you've upset in the process, it takes courage to stand up for yourself, but then also to apologize where you might have made mistakes. That's a vulnerable place to be. Instead of just ignorantly defending yourself for your own pride or ego, because ego is the enemy in almost every instance. I need to read that book, another Ryan Holiday classic. It would take a place of courage and vulnerability to defend what's right, and then to apologize or to amend your mistakes where you went wrong. But yeah, I would just apologize profusely all the time anyway, because I just want to soothe things over. I'm anti-conflict. I'm anti-conflict, and it's a problem. Because I try to be a good person anyway, and then people can take advantage of people that are anti-conflict. Take advantage of them and for their own gain. But anyway, so I'm kind of dragging this one on, but it takes courage to stand up for yourself, and instead of, how does she say it? I'll read her quote again. Leaders must either invest a reasonable amount of time attending to fears and feelings, or squander an unreasonable amount of time trying to manage ineffective and unproductive behavior. That's in the workplace, because that's what this book was all about. Section 3, the armory. This part broke. Let me get more coffee. Section 3. This was all about taking down your armor, taking off your armor, and becoming vulnerable. It's a metaphor. It's her metaphor. But she talks about elements of armor we use to defend ourselves, so we don't have to be vulnerable. I wonder if I can find the... I just took notes like I normally do. I don't think I wrote down all of the armor. I don't even know if she listed it like that in that kind of context. She does compare. Okay, here's a good. She compares armored leadership to daring leadership. And I guess since I haven't said anything about daring, what it means to be daring, she compares daring to armored or protected leadership. And daring leadership, just like I read in those things that prevent courageousness or daring leadership. Daring leadership comes from a place of vulnerability. It comes from trying new things, taking extreme ownership for failures, for mistakes, taking smart risks. Let's see, having tough conversations. This is what it means to be daring. So the opposite is being a protected or armored leader. This list of armored leadership includes driving perfectionism and fostering fear, working from scarcity and squandering opportunities for joy, numbing, I'm a number, propagating the false dichotomy of victim or Viking, crush or be crushed, being a knower and being right, hiding behind cynicism, using criticism and self-protection, using power over, hustling for our worth, leading for compliance and control, weaponizing fear and uncertainty, rewarding exhaustion and a status symbol, and attaching productivity to self-worth, tolerating discrimination, echo chambers, and a fitting in culture, collecting gold stars, zigzagging and avoiding leading from hurt. Versus being a daring leader, modeling and encouraging healthy striving, empathy, and self-compassion, practicing gratitude and celebrating milestones, setting boundaries and finding real comfort, practice integration, being a learner and getting it right. Yeah, she says getting it right instead of being right. Modeling clarity, kindness, and hope, making contributions and taking risks, using power with, power to, and power within, knowing our value, cultivating commitment and sharing purpose, acknowledging, naming, and normalizing collective fear and uncertainty, modeling and supporting rest, play, and recovery. You know how I feel about rest, play, and recovery. Cultivating a culture of belonging, inclusivity, and diverse perspectives. Giving gold stars. Straight talking and taking action and leading from the heart, not from hurt. So that's what this section's all about. All of those points, basically. I don't even need to read my points now, but I will. So let's talk about the armory for a moment. Oh, yeah. And then she breaks down each point, each armored leadership point, and daring leadership point in the book. She breaks them down. So here's my points. Section 3. The ego has no interest in wholeheartedness. Excuse me. Again, ego is the enemy. It's important to understand what ego is, so I'm going to look up this definition really fast. Self-importance, self-esteem, a person's sense of self-esteem or self-importance, the part of the mind that mediates between the conscious and the unconscious and is responsible for reality testing, and a sense of personal identity. That's the psychoanalysis of ego. But yes, it's your own self-importance, self-esteem. So it's kind of funny that how important it is to disregard your own self-importance because it has collective benefits. Yeah, interesting. Oh, that's so good. So the ego, your self-interest, has no interest in wholeheartedness. Armored leadership is leading from fear. Yeah, daring is leading from the heart. Perfectionism is thinking what others will think. Is thinking, what will others think? Healthy striving is thinking, how can I improve? Perfectionism is a function of shame. It's more about perception than internal motivation. I'm a perfectionist, and it's a toxic trait to have. She talks about this shitty first draft concept later in the book at the end that I'll bring up, but people can't be creative. Perfectionists can't be creative because they expect to be perfect their first attempt of whatever they're doing. But it's toxic because it's impossible. And then even as you become experienced and more professional or just better at whatever you're trying to do, perfectionism still hinders people from trying something, because if you try to write something like this podcast, I still don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Every time I write a blog, I don't know what I'm doing or what direction I'm going. Every time I pick up my guitar, it's not really about writing good music right away or writing a good essay or saying the best words right at the beginning. It's about spilling all of your guts out in whatever medium you're using, and then refining it until you get to some specific destination, and it often goes somewhere that you don't ever want it to go, or not want it to go, but never expected it to go. See, there's an example. I just spilled something out. I don't even know what I was trying to say, but then I figured it out because I was just working it out. It's all about working it out. So perfectionism is a toxic trait for anybody who wants to accomplish anything. Excuse me. But we can work through it. Perfectionism is more about perception than internal motivation. All right. Good morning, mashed potatoes. Better late than never. That's what I always say. Saint Steez TV should be around here somewhere. If you guys want to hold hands through the rest of this. We're reading Dared to Lead by Brené Brown. You can re-listen to the earlier parts if you want, but we're still pretty early. Joy and gratitude are the most vulnerable emotions we can feel. Joy and gratitude. Numbing. We all numb. The question is, to what extent? the biggest components to numbing are anxiety, resentment, and vulnerability. I'm going to just keep going because I am obsessed with this numbing idea. Direct quote: The cure to numbing is developing tools and practices that allow you to lean into discomfort and renew your spirit. Close quote. It's not about what you do, it's why you do it. um, Numbing is, yes, this idea. Okay, part of my perfectionist mentality is that as I've learned about this numbing principle that everybody does, I've thought, well, if you want to be the healthiest or the most successful or the most accomplished, you have no numbing agents. You don't numb at all. You're just constantly improving or constantly learning or whatever. You're successful people never numb. But over time, I've kind of discovered or thought, and then Brene is explaining that everybody numbs. And I think it's, geez, I got some in my throat. I'm sorry. I think it's a natural behavior because most of life is uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable, especially for our ancestors. And I'm going to make a plug for our ancestors because that's what I do here. Our ancestors were, they lived in huts in the forest or in the desert or in the tundra or whatever. They lived they lived outside all the time, and they had to hunt their food and whatever. It's all uncomfortable stuff. They didn't have electricity, even, like 100, 200 years ago. They didn't have heat or air conditioning. They didn't have cars, they didn't have internet. Life is just uncomfortable. And every innovation is an attempt to make us more comfortable. So we numb. When we're uncomfortable, we numb. And, back in the day, it probably looked like getting plastered in the saloon. Or it looked like doing mushrooms around the campfire. Or, I don't know, like raiding and pillaging villages. It's all distractions. It's all numbing. So, it came up on my screen. Steve says, "Hey, primals." Mashed potatoes. I'm not sure what that means, but I'm sure you're trying to offend me. Yeah. Hey, we need to get you acquainted with the Liver King because we're all primals in his eyes, and he is king because Liver is king. Do you know his name is Brandon? What a lame name for a guy that looks like him. His name is Brandon. Hey, there's nothing wrong with guys named Brandon, but he does not look like a Brandon. So, so we all numb. Everyone's numbed because life is just uncomfortable. And so the point is to be conscious and to be aware, have awareness in your life, to live on a higher plane and to have peace. You must understand why you numb. What are you trying to numb out? Not necessarily less numbing, but understand why you're numbing. Are you running away from anxiety, resentment, and vulnerability? Or is this or not? And I've had this idea in the past. Or I've said this at least. If you're in a shitty relationship, or if you hate your job, or if you hate where you live, or your kids bug you, but you can't just run away from your kids, or you shouldn't just run away from your kids. Just whatever in your life is dragging you down. And people, instead of facing those things, they will hide from them, and they'll hide behind whatever they want. They'll hide behind porn, or they'll hide behind drugs, or alcohol, or food, or video games, or things that are really easy to consume and just block everything out. They'll hide behind TV. And sometimes they'll hide behind like golf, or they'll hide behind rec league baseball or basketball. They're people numb. And the point is, are you numbing to hide from things in your life that are hard or uncomfortable? Are you hiding from anxiety, resentment, or vulnerability? Are you not progressing in your job because you're afraid of moving forward? Are you numbing? Are you numbing yourself just sitting behind the desk because you know it's what's comfortable and there's promotions available for you and there's other opportunities, but you don't take them because it's scary and you don't know, so you numb yourself by just staying where you're at? That's the point. So, awareness of why you numb. So the point is not to not numb. The point is to know why you're doing it. And that's only if you want to be a healthy individual, have a healthy relationship with the people in your life, the activities, the things that you do, or if you or you choose not to be. It also brings peace, it brings clarity, it gives you chances for happiness and improvement. But if you don't seek peace or improvement, then you continue to numb. That's the point. And people have the right to do whatever they want, as long as it's not harming anybody else, right? Isn't that my philosophy at the end of all of this? Some people don't care to seek improvement, so they just continue to numb and self-medicate. So whatever, let them do that. But people who want to improve need to be aware why they numb, why they do what they do, and which brings a lot of introspection to me for why I play video games, and like what else? Why I do this? Like this. All of this is distraction for me too from a lot of stuff. It's an and I'm in the video. I'm holding up the book and talking about the podcast. It's a mode of distraction for me, but it's, in my opinion, in my idea, it's a healthy distraction. Instead of sleeping in, which is a form of neglect, I am being proactive and distracting myself by doing something which I think is productive. So, everything. It's just about knowing why you do what you do. So that's it. That's about numbing. I think there's a lot to be said about why we numb. And I think that has a lot to do with our well-being, our peace of mind, our improvement. Anyway, so the biggest components to numbing are anxiety, resentment, and vulnerability. Let's move on. Go from always being right to always learning to remove the leadership armor. Yes. You don't always be right. Seek to always learn. That's the motto. Hey, Wasatch. I'm a little late, but happy V-Day, Cade. Happy V-Day, Wasatch. You see these? I got my ears for you. Yeah, happy V-Day. Happy Valentine's Day. We talked about St. Valentine earlier, too, if you want to go check that out. The history of Valentine's Day. It's not interesting. It's not that interesting. All right. Hey, we need to play some pickleball too, Wasatch. So buy your house or whatever you got to do, and let's play some pickleball. Cynicism and sarcasm cut deep. The antidote is to model clarity, kindness, and hope. She says so many times, clear is kind, unclear is unkind. Clearness, to me, meaning straightforwardness and honesty and not beating around the bush and whatever. Being clear, being transparent, and not assuming anything. Assumptions, you know what they say about assuming? It makes an ass out of you and me. Assume. I heard that on my mission. But because I heard that on my mission from a mission leader, I'm like, well, you don't have to, not a mission leader, but someone on my mission. And I'm like, you don't have to say the A word. Clear is kind. Unclear is unkind. The antidote is to model clarity, kindness, and hope. She says, too, I didn't write it down, but cynicism and sarcasm cut deep in real life, but they cut even deeper through text messages and social media and email or whatever, just where you can't read body language and vocal fluctuations because, back to our biology, we're designed to be able to interpret facial expressions, body expressions, vocal fluxions to interpret the meaning of whatever's being spoken or being translated, portrayed. And anyway, you can't get that out of text messages. So cynicism and sarcasm over text kind of just kind of sound like insults. They just feel worse. They feel worse. And in the workplace, cynicism and sarcasm don't go very far. And it actually can lead to an in-group, out-group experience, leaving people feeling excluded because some people might pick up on your sarcasm and some others may not. It's not good. It's not a healthy work environment communication skill or whatever it is. So cynicism and sarcasm, no bueno. Be extremely specific with requests and intentions. Don't leave anything to assumption. Everyone feels better and results will be predictable. There you go. She echoes Adam Alter. Remember, he's the one that wrote Irresistible about our screen addictions that I did several months ago. About she echoes Adam Alter about the negative side effects of sleep deprivation and echoes Celeste Headley, author of Do Nothing, that play is an essential element to well-being, and overworking should not be encouraged or praised. I can't echo how important those two principles are in my life, and over the last few months having implemented them, how much better I feel about myself in my relationships, and then how much better I feel about work when I don't overwork and I have plenty of time to spend with my girlfriend and with my friends and doing things that I like playing music, playing video games, instead of being insanely consumed with work. There was a little while where I was, and it's probably going to happen again over this summer. I'm still trying to figure out how to balance this in the busy season, but overworking is no bueno, and then undersleeping is no bueno. Far more negative side effects of not getting enough sleep and overworking than there are positive side effects to doing those things. Far more negative. So, tons of negative side effects with sleep deprivation, and I could read that list. That first paragraph in chapter 2 of Irresistible is one of my favorite chapters of all time. It talks about increase of cancer, increase of diabetes, increase in depression and anxiety from a lack of sleep. Anyway, and then Do Nothing by Celeste Headley, still one of my all-time faves. Play is essential to well-being, and overworking should not be encouraged or praised. All right. And then a direct quote to end this section. True belonging doesn't require you to change who you are. It requires to be who you are. That's true belonging. Oh, whoa, lots of chats. Should I read these? What's up, my boy? Seeing the family here. Chancerito. Should probably be less sarcastic. Literally, no one knows when I'm being serious. Yeah. Yeah, you're actually really hard to read sometimes. I think we understand each other, though, Hato, yet overworking is praised and looked at as respected. Yeah, you're exactly right. It's a culture thing. People, they grind and they have grit. I know Steve loves that word, grit. They put in extra hours and they flex how hard they work because they want to be successful. And overworking or just working a ton looks like you're being productive. But busy work or just forcing yourself to work, it might produce some kind of work results for you, but it's not contributing to your personal well-being or your relationships. Overworking is just overworking. So for well-being and intimate relationship well-being, overworking should not be praised. But some work cultures encourage it. So, but I think that's a really good point. That who said that? I think Wasatch said that. Overworking is praised and looked at as respected. Yeah, you're right. Except for the time you thought my new overlapping monitor setup was real. Yep, I still think it's real, and you just fixed it. Don't worry about us. We're apes. Yeah, diamond tits. Is that the phrase? Oh, you don't even. Hey, you can't use diamond tits if you don't have any money in GME or AMC. All right, sorry, but my nipples are rock hard. That's for sure. I actually need to check on that stock. I haven't looked in a long time. Okay, that's section 3. Section 4, shame and empathy. I talked a lot about shame from the book Dopamine by Dr. Anna Lemsky. I'll read it. I've got 2 points. Shame is the fear of disconnection, that we don't belong. Shame and fear drive almost all unethical behavior. And Brene has studied shame and empathy for 20 years. Shame and fear drive almost all unethical behavior. The cure to shame is empathy. Echoes Dr. Anna Lemsky, Dopamine Nation, about pro-social shame. If you remember, pro-social shame is this idea, instead of rejecting people because of their bad behavior, it's accepting them for their bad behavior and then helping them change it. So she went through Alcoholics Anonymous, AA, and for a long time, and they implement this pro-social shame ideology to the T. It's very strict. And again, a lot of people refer to AA as a cult because of this, because it's so intense. But that's why it works. Like that lady who was sober for like 10 years or whatever, 5 years, 20 years, whatever it was, and took a drink from something in Italy that had like 0.01% alcohol, and her sponsor encouraged her to reset her sobriety date, even though she didn't even get fucked up. And she didn't know that it had alcohol because it was like an O'Doul's, where it's technically non-alcoholic, but it has a very minuscule alcohol content. Anyway, Alcoholics Anonymous is intense. So, I just looked at your stupid diamond tits thing again, and I gotta say that my tits are jacked. And I hate that you said that, and I want to block you for saying that, mashed potatoes. So, Alcoholics Anonymous and again, shame is it's a natural reaction. It's a natural feeling, because to be accepted in your tribe, you had to act a certain way, right? You had to fit in. The conformity is a biological desire, because if we are outcasts, especially for our hunter-gatherer ancestors, where there were maybe 15 of you in your tribe, if you were an outcast, you would be cast out and your chances of survival dropped near zero. But as long as you fit in and you contributed to your tribe, you'd stay in, and you would work together and have all of the people around supporting you. So your chances of survival were higher. So conformity is in today's world, when we do something that is wrong, we feel shame. And shame is a good indicator that what you're doing is probably not good. And is that always true? I can't think of an instance where shame, or maybe if like okay. I guess the first thing that comes to my head is if you could just look at it politically. If you lean heavy right and you're arguing with a bunch of people from the left, you might feel shame for not feeling included in this in-group. Like if you're a liberal that lives in a really Republican area, or if you're a conservative that lives in a really liberal area, you might feel like an outcast. But I guess you feel like and I guess religion does that too. You feel like your values are higher than whatever your society is in. But that doesn't necessarily contribute to behavior. If you behave inappropriately and it brings on shame, that's different than just believing something. I'm thinking out loud. So yeah, if you're an alcoholic and you're ruining your marriage, or you have a terrible relationship with your family because of your behavior, you're going to feel shame, and pro-social shame encourages you to fix your behavior to become a functioning member in your tribe. But negative shame is pushing people out because of their behavior. So shame is good, but pro-social shame is behavior, or is better because it accepts someone for their mistakes and helps them become a better person. I love that you guys are chatting so much. Make me a mod of this channel and I'll ban him. Yeah, real cool to ban a guy seeking motivation from a motivation bot. Okay, dad bod, whatever you say. I would appreciate it if you wouldn't send your new sex toys in the fitness gym and pretend like they're fitness tools. Oh, jeez. All right, keep hashing it out, boys. Keep hashing it out. The cure to shame is empathy, echoes Dr. Lemsky. All pain can be met with empathy. Empathy is connection. I've thought a lot about this. She says empathy is always better than sympathy. And if you're like me and can't remember the difference, empathy is where you are relating to a person's bad experience, where you don't sympathize. You empathize with them. If someone's going through a hard time, you say, I feel for you. I could understand what that's like, or I've felt that, or I'm going through it now. And sympathy is saying, I don't know what you feel like, and I feel bad for you, or I have sympathy for you. Sympathy usually doesn't encourage, but usually promotes isolation. It makes that person feel like no one can relate to me. I'm going through this alone, and makes me feel even worse. But empathy almost always, because it brings someone else to your level. You can relate to each other. It promotes inclusivity. Hello? Who's coming in? You have cookies? Are you going to come say hi on my podcast, or are you just going to bring me cookies? Okay, I can't eat them right now. If you come over here, you're going to say hi. I'm live on a podcast right now. Happy Valentine's Day. Look what she got. Oh, you've got me a little sweet note. Thank you. I got her flowers, too. They're upstairs. Do you like them? Thank you. Thanks for the cookies. Actually, will you take this upstairs so I don't eat them right now? They're so cute. Thank you. I'll be up on just a little bit. All right. Mashed Potato says, oh, and Steve's, they say, what's up, Kayla? We love you. Yeah, I am going to get fat if I eat those. They're crumble cookies. I think one cookie has maybe 1,500 calories. Throw those cookies away and eat some nuts. What was I saying? Empathy? God damn it. At least you guys can empathize with me about how delicious those crumble cookies are going to be. Yeah. So anyway, empathy is always better than sympathy. It promotes connection and makes people feel better because sympathy is naturally a disconnecting mechanism. Okay. Section 5. Curiosity and grounded confidence. Quote, vulnerability is the greatest casualty of trauma. It makes you protected. You protect yourself after trauma, naturally. To make learning effective, it needs to be effortful. It needs to be uncomfortable. This is curiosity and grounded confidence. To be able to express your creativity in a space where you're not judged or condemned or whatever negative emotion, you need to be in a safe place so that you can express yourself freely and not be judged harshly. It's the only way creativity works. I think of someone, or think of yourself when you tried something new as a kid and someone said that's dumb, or you shouldn't be doing that, or you're not good at that, or that's ugly, like your voice is ugly, or you're not creative, or that's just basic, or whatever, or cringe. Someone says you're cringe, or it's all the stupid lingo today. Makes you feel bad, and it's a light form of trauma, and you start to guard yourself against ever doing that again. Doing whatever it is again. And again, this is like the shame mechanism too. You feel shame, you feel embarrassed because of what you're doing. This is a negative effect to doing something positive for a good behavior. And the first time I did the podcast, I got tons of negative feedback. I got 90% of it was positive feedback, but the 10% of negative feedback I got, for some reason, far outweighed all of the positive. You read and feel and are grateful for all the good stuff, but the very, very few negative stuff hits so hard. And I get less of it today because no one wants to argue with me on self-improvement shit. But still, all the negative feedback that I get just sucks. It hurts. And then you want to protect yourself from feeling that hurt again, or that criticism or the shame. So you feel inclined not to do that again. I feel it mostly when I play music. I feel it mostly when I'm singing or playing guitar, playing whatever, and I get so paranoid that my music is basic, or my writing is basic, or it's cringe. I hate cringe. But that's part of creativity, and that's part of what we'll talk about later on in just a minute. How you can't always write top 50 greatest hits of all time. You got to write a bunch of you're writing all the time, and you have to be able to accept that whatever you're doing can't be perfect all the time. And if you don't accept that, you're going to be caught in this negative feedback loop, and you won't be creative. You won't feel like you could express your creativity. And this is anyway, that's the point of this whole section. To make learning effective, it needs to be effortful. It needs to be uncomfortable. Curiosity is naturally deviant. Yeah, that's the point. This chat did be popping today. I do something cringe 2 to 3 times a day. I do it in front of other people though, and they're like, and then I feel like I like say things to myself sometimes, and I feel it's cringe, and then I just laugh it off because no one's watching. But even just doing this, people are calling you out about music in your podcast. Who are they? Let the fam handle them. Thanks. Look at this. This is the fam, bro. Thanks. Even just doing this right now, and you guys are my homies. I've got 4 viewers right now, and I'll have this conversation with you in real life, and I don't feel as vulnerable. But I don't know who's gonna listen to this after I post it on Spotify, and I don't know what their reaction is going to be. I am always paranoid that I'll put something out and somebody will listen to it and they'll go, "Oh, this guy, he's so annoying. His voice. He drinks coffee, or he always makes this weird noise or whatever, or he plays music and his voice is okay, or his music is okay." That's why I've always been so scared of writing music, of trying to write music, of sharing my music. Because I hold it's so valuable to me. Because I love it. I've heard other people play music. I've heard other podcasts or conversations where I've judged them and thought, "Oh, this is cringe," or "This is mediocre," and I don't care to keep listening, and they're just whatever. Like, I want my shit to be jamming all the time because I want people to enjoy what I'm putting out. I don't want to be the cringe or the mediocre guy. But even people like Drake, who's adored by millions, is criticized, probably can be criticized, and like people like LeBron James, people that are the greatest of all time are going to be criticized harshly by some. And it seems like the extreme negative feedback or the extreme negative criticism always stands out larger than the immense positive feedback. I think that's kind of the nature of it. The negative always just feels heavier. But if I continue to make the podcast, I continue to write, I'm trying really hard to put out music, and I have to accept that if I'm working hard at it, it'll be decent, and if it's decent, then if I practice and then I put it out and it's decent, it'll probably be most people will be like, yeah, this is pretty good. It's not going to be phenomenal. It doesn't some people will think it's phenomenal, and then there will be a few that think it's shitty. And the shitty feedback will always feel heavier than the rest of it. That's the sucky nature about being creative. And it takes courage and it takes confidence to stand through that vulnerability, which is the point of this fucking book, to be vulnerable and to accept all of that, all of whatever's happening. Have you seen Haid? Let me take one by him. He could take one by himself. Nope, someone is always watching me do this cringe stuff. Yeah, only way to improve. It's true. It's true. It takes confidence to not be... it takes confidence and courage to be vulnerable. What are your thoughts on DMT and free-range elk? I'll get to that. I'll get to that in the postscript interview. Never done DMT. I've had one free-range elk meal, and it was delicious. We made tacos out of it. And the meat is leaner and juicier than ground beef. But the ground beef that I get is from my grandpa. It's all grass-fed, grass-finished ground beef, and it's very delicious. So, all right. This is a good one. I'm an hour in, and I've got 3 more parts to get through, but not a lot of notes. So we'll do this. Part 2. Oh, that was all part 1. So maybe the meat of the book was part 1, because I have part 2, 3, and 4 in just in less notes, fewer notes than the first part. So part 2, living into our values. And I talk about values all the freaking time. If you don't have a hierarchy of values, then you will be stuck when you have to choose between values. It's one thing to know what you hold important, what you deem valuable, and then it's another thing to understand what's most important, what's the second most important, third and fourth, because you can't hold 2 things at equal importance, because there will be I'm trying to think of an example, but theoretically, there will be times when you have to choose between values, and sometimes you have to choose one option. One option is good, but the other option is better. One is good, one is better. Most of the time, it's easy to choose if the one option is good and the other option is bad. But when one option is good and one option is better, it's tough. I think like an example I can think of is I value quality time in my relationship and with my friends, and I value spending time with them, and we can stay up, we can stay up all night hanging out and doing whatever. I value that quality time, and I also value getting up early, exercising, going through my morning routine, meditating, and having quality personal time as well. And typically, I have to sacrifice one to have the other. Like during the week, I go to bed at 8:30, and I sacrifice the video game time that my friends have online after 9, because I need to get to bed, and I've got the gym, I got my personal time, I have the podcast, I have my writing, music, whatever. I sacrifice the quality time with my friends for my personal time. And then on the weekends, I usually sacrifice my personal time to stay up late and do whatever I'm doing with my friends. Yesterday was the Super Bowl. I sacrificed my Sunday personal time to be with them, to play pickleball. I sacrificed on Friday and Saturday, I sacrificed my evenings to play video games. Again, I justify video games because it's mostly a social thing. For me, when we're all doing our thing and we have competitive gameplay with each other and we can talk to each other, it's not as intimate, but it's still a lot of fun. It's way fun. It's very competitive. It's not just a numbing agent for me. It is sometimes, but I think when I really think about it, I think it's mostly it's a social thing. So I sacrifice my personal time, my personal mornings to stay up late and play video games with my friends. Awesome. So, having a hierarchy of values is important because it helps you understand what you actually value and what you value more than others. So, I'll keep going. You don't know someone until you know their values. That speaks volumes, especially for your friends and your family. Operate off the assumption that people are doing the best they can at all times. Awesome. That's part 2. So, values. I think I'm coming up with this theory that the ultimate path to happiness or to peace or to well-being comes from living your values, and always trying to choose the best value over the good value or the okay value. I don't know if I know exactly where my personal time value compares to my quality time with friends value. So I think right now I hold more valuable my personal self-improvement time over the quality time with my friends. And I'm sorry that you have to hear me say this, but I think it's true. We're 26 and we have, if I'm lucky, 60 more years I have like 40 years of good health and then maybe another 20 of okay health. And I want to just maximize my health, my wisdom, my strength. I want to be mentally coherent for a family. And so I think I value that personal time to improve myself for my future self more than I value, getting fucked up with the boys or playing video games late with the boys and neglecting sleep or neglecting working out and neglecting reading and writing. Because on Friday and Saturday, I 100% neglected reading and writing and practicing music and practicing other personal things that are important to me to play video games with my friends, which is valuable to me. So, that being said, trying to choose your top tier values over the lower tier values ultimately will bring you closer to peace and well-being and happiness. And that's, isn't that the point? The point after all is to seek peace. And peace comes by leaning into your values. And that's the whole point of part 2. Living into your values. If you don't have a hierarchy of values, then you will be stuck. And you don't know someone else until you know their values. And that takes a lot of effort to sit down and talk to somebody, whether it's a friend or it's your partner or it's your family, a family member. You don't know them until you know why they do what they do or what they value in their life, what they want out of their life. And then if you understand their values and they're not living up to their values, you can be concerned for them, or you can at least try to help them do better by themselves and support them. And that brings a whole level of connection between you and that person or those people. I've heard elk meat makes you develop breasts. I don't know if that's true. Yeah. No, it doesn't. 8:30, that's impressive. I try to get to bed at 8:30. I was in bed at 9:30 last night. Thank you for your sacrifice. You're so brave. I love taking your money. Ouch. Yeah, you guys are savage. But hey, I made a lot of money. St. Steve's TV and we made a lot of money over the weekend gambling with our friends playing video games. It's fun. Some games, just depends. Usually depends on your teammates. And I'm going to leave it at that. Part 3, braving trust. Let me finish this coffee. Trust between managers and employees define the safest and most successful workplaces. Asking for help is the biggest trust builder for managers with their employees or with the employees. Asking for help, it's the biggest trust builder. Braving trust. Trust between managers and employees define the safest and most successful workplaces. I think this part, where'd it go? I think this was all a bunch of personal experiences about trust, how to build trust, and trust building exercises. you know, so I didn't take a lot. That's the only note I've got for this part. Integrity is choosing courage over comfort, choosing what's right over what's fun, fast, or easy, and it's practicing your values and not just professing them. That's integrity. That's a hot ass quote that I just randomly found. Integrity is choosing courage over comfort. It's choosing what's right over what's fun, fast, or easy, and it's practicing your values, not just professing them. Thank you, Brene. And then part 4, learning to rise. This is about emotions. She talks about emotions and how to manage emotions. It's easy to lean into our emotions and use that to let them guide our lives, to let them guide our decisions. But emotions are almost never, they're either not accurate or they're which is the same thing. They're a misrepresentation of what's happening. And if you let your emotions guide your decisions, you're usually going to make bad decisions. So a lot of this is dedicated to managing emotions. She talks about box breath. Talk about a lot box breath. Rogan's talked about box breath with the breath scientist, and then yoga. We do it all the time. You take four long inhale. Okay, a count of 4. So count 4 seconds. Inhale. Hold it for 4 seconds. Exhale for 4 seconds. Hold it for 4 seconds. And you can do it with 2 seconds or 3 or 5, but 4 is I think that's the default. So that's called box breath. She talks about the benefits of box breath, how it can recenter you. If you have an Apple Watch, they have a breath app too that'll help you, or that'll guide you through that. I've done that a few times. I don't wear my watch very much anymore, so there's that. And then I said you can't create anything meaningful without a shitty first draft. She calls it an SFD. SFD, and this is what I was talking about from earlier. The SFD, you can't create anything meaningful without accepting the shitty first draft. Let me see if I can find that quote about the SFD. Because it's so critical if you want to do anything, if you want to be creative at all. And there was a good quote about it. I'm trying to find. Maybe it's after these offloading strategies. She talks about offloading strategies, how to, offload your emotions, how we do it in a negative fashion, how we do it positively, or how we should be doing it. Let's see. So, who is this Burton? Robert Burton. I think he's the one that came up with this. The first story we make up is what we call the shitty first draft, or the SFD. The idea of a shitty first draft comes from Anna Lamott. Her exceptional book on writing, Bird by Bird. She writes, "The only way I can get anything written at all is to write a really, really shitty first draft. The first draft is the child's draft, where you let it all pour out and then let it romp all over the place, knowing that no one is going to see it and that you can shape it later." Which makes me think, I think I'm in a bad habit of sometimes not preparing well enough, and I publish whatever I publish without editing or revising it enough. So usually what I am posting to the world looks like or sounds like or feels like the shitty first draft. And maybe the only way around this perfectionist idea is to write shitty stuff, music or blogs or podcasts or whatever, to write it in private and then refine it before you post it or before you share it. That kind of rhymed as I was going, and it was unintentional. So maybe that's why I'm Maybe that's why I get insecure about sharing my creativities, because I try to share the first draft of everything. But if I spend more time in privacy working on my if I hash out all of my shitty first draft privately and then spend some time refining them, I can share a much more refined and better version of it. Maybe that's the point. Maybe that's what I'm missing. Let's go for the longest pod record. I'm ready for the next 4 hours. No, I can't. The book is over, and I'm not Rogan, and I don't do mushrooms on the pod. If I did mushrooms, if I did DMT, maybe we could talk about it. Rome wasn't busy in a day, as they say. Built. Rome wasn't built in a day. You're right. But they also say something else about Rome. When in Rome. That's what they say. Ugh, that typo was cringe. Rome wasn't busy in a day, as they say. Yeah, I think that's I think I like to do shit, and then I either don't put enough time or energy into my projects, and I share the original draft, or I am just a perfectionist and I expect everything that I write to be perfect, right as it comes out, and it's a toxic cycle to be in. So that's learning to rise. That's what I got for learning to rise, this section or part 4. Yeah. So, but I also skimmed through this last section pretty quick. Like I said, I neglected my personal time Friday and Saturday to play video games, and so I kind of blazed through this last section. But that's what I got. So yeah, that's Dare to Lead. That's Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. Brave work, tough conversations, whole hearts. The accepting vulnerability, to be comfortable in vulnerability takes courage, and what the world needs more of is courageous leaders to become extremely to own their how does Jocko say it? To take extreme ownership. And that takes courage, and it takes vulnerability. When you fuck up, own it. Remember Jocko's story from when I did Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin, where Navy SEALs in Ramadi, Iraq, and Jocko was leading I had a crew, a squad, or I don't know what you call them, a group of soldiers he was leading, and they ended up in a friendly fire combat where Marines and SEALs were firing at each other, and they didn't know. And Jocko broke it up, and it's a really, really, they call it blue on blue, and it's a really bad thing, as you can imagine. Friendlies shooting at each other, and an Iraqi friendly was killed, and several others were injured. Anyway, Jocko had tried to write up why the mistake had happened and how they got confused and why so-and-so didn't know that friendlies were in this building and whatever. And he says, at the end of the day, the only thing that mattered was that Jocko was in charge of everything. He was the one that was responsible. And rather than trying to explain how his groups had messed up, he had, to his superiors, explain, I was responsible for my troops. I'm responsible for the blue on blue. It's my fault. And he says that's the only reason that he ever kept his job as a commanding officer in Iraq, was because he took extreme ownership of a very, very bad situation, a very big mistake. And he says for the close quarter combat, extreme chaotic situation that Iraq is in, it was a common thing, which is very unfortunate. But he says the only reason his career was saved was because he took extreme ownership. And that's the point. Being a courageous leader takes courageousness in vulnerability and extreme ownership and all of this on everything else that I fucking said throughout the last hour and a half. Nice. 5 viewers? Yeah, we out here. I don't have a job. I'm here all day, baby. Uh, wait, what? Damn, Chance, where you been? Yeah. Um, yeah. Hey, Brax. We'll get that sorted out ASAP. Don't you worry for a hot second. Thanks for showing up, boys. That's it. That's all I got for the podcast. So, for today, this was Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. If you have questions or comments about this, I've had a few people reach out. Like I said, I usually it's mostly positive feedback through my Instagram. People will message me on Instagram, and it's right here in the video. But you can also find me on Twitter. You can find me on YouTube. And I like the feedback. I've had some people ask questions, probing questions about certain topics that I've had. And again, most of it's positive. I'm glad. I want to hear how this podcast can be better. If you have any tips or tricks, I do not take negative criticism very well, but I try to take positive criticism well. And so anyway, this is Caden's Podcast Book Club, which is live on YouTube and on Facebook under Caden's Podcast, and live on Twitch under Alpha Seltzer. And then it's posted to Spotify and Apple Podcast the day after if you don't catch it live. And that's fine. But come catch it live because everyone's here chatting and it's a great time. And then, let's see what else. I do a blog. I write a blog, Caden Kelly's blog.wordpress.com. And then do also do Substack, cadenkelly.substack.com. Post it's a supplement to the podcast. I get to just write out my ideas a little bit more. It helps. It empowers critical thinking, which I believe is the most important skill for a cohesive and sustainable environment, culture, community, society. Critical thinking, the most important skill, especially it's effective in your relationships. It's effective in any self-improvement that you want to make, is being able to critically think about information that you hear and then make important, good decisions, informed decisions. It starts with critical thinking. So I write and then I read. Okay, I read first and then I blog and then I podcast and then I meditate on it. And I try to do all of these things to improve my critical thinking. And you should too, because critical thinking, again, is perhaps the most important skill anybody can refine for a cohesive society. So that's the podcast. And thanks for showing up. Let's see. Got here late, but I'll rewatch the VOD. Hit me up, Chance. We can chat. I think this podcast is perfect. Much love. Oh, brother, this guy stinks. Reads a lot of books. What? I don't get the asterisk. What about my ability to have a fat ass? What are you talking about? What did I say? I don't know what you're referring to. Those are some stray comments that I must have missed. I'm sorry. But I'm going to turn this off. I'm never going to know. I'm going to turn the podcast off. Thanks for showing up. We'll be here again next week. It'll not be Valentine's Day, and I will not have these ears. So don't you worry about it. But it will be President's Day, so I might wear a suit and tie. It's President's Day next Monday, by the way. Have a good week. Go do something hard. Challenge yourself. Go do exercise your creativity. Be okay with being uncomfortable. Don't take negative criticism personally, because that sucks. And I could go on a little bit more about why that's important, but I'll just say don't take negative criticism personally. And then you will be, give me 2 quick ones. I know so many facts about Rome. Yeah, okay. Well, you guys could talk about it. Thanks for showing up.